I wanted to share a few thoughts with you about grief. Grief is a result of loss, and loss comes to us in many different ways. It comes with the loss of a job, the loss of a marriage, the loss of a relationship with a family member who we loved. It comes with the death of a loved one. Sometimes grief comes slowly, like it grows over time. For example, when someone we love dies of cancer, the grief process takes place during the treatment of the cancer, and then when the person dies, it's quite mixed with relief. Because when someone dies suddenly, or we suddenly lose our job, totally and unexpectedly, it's a very different grief. It's almost harsher in some senses. So a couple of thoughts around that. Psalm 30 says, "Sing to the Lord, all you godly ones, praise his holy name, for his anger lasts only a moment, but his favour lasts a lifetime. Weeping may last through the night, but joy comes with the morning." That phrase, weeping may last through the night, but joy comes with the morning. When we suffer loss, we grieve and we do weep. Somehow the psalmist has found a hope here that joy comes with the morning. He goes on and he concludes Psalm 30. This is David, by the way. He says, "You've turned my mourning into dancing," and mourning is grieving, into joyful dancing. "You have taken away my clothes of mourning and clothed me with joy, that I might sing praises to you and not be silent. O Lord my God, I will give you thanks forevermore." It's a really triumphant end to the psalm. This reality, you have turned. God, you've done this. I've pressed into you, God, in my grief, in my pain, in my suffering, and you have turned my mourning into joyful dancing. God, you have taken away my clothes of mourning, grieving, and you've clothed me with joy that I might sing praises to you. A lot of that's rooted in the hope that we have in Christ, the anchor for our souls, that death doesn't have the final say, that loss is a season. It doesn't last. God will have the final say in this. And we're, of course, talking about the King and his kingdom. But right now, there are people grieving. And one of the resources that I found helpful, and I wanted to recommend it to you, was a book by a man called Granger E. Westberg. And the book is called Good Grief, and it's a companion for every loss. So this is not just something that's helpful for people who are experiencing the death of a loved one. This is actually a really helpful book for grief, as a companion for every loss. And typically a grief process will take 2 years for it to work through. It varies in that, but that's what a significant loss will take most people about 2 years to work through the different stages of grief. And this book outlines the different stages that people will go through as they grieve. If you've never been through grief, this is a helpful book to read. If you've been through grief, you will see a lot of your own experience in this book. A lot of helpful material in here. This is something worth buying and having on your bookshelf at home as a resource for yourself and for others when grief strikes suddenly or when it comes slowly. This is an excellent resource. Of course, it's a companion to the Bible. The Bible is full of wonderful promises of what happens at the end of grief, and that God is the one who comforts us, and he comes alongside and strengthens us in our grief. So never minimize someone else's grief, or your own for that matter. Never tell yourself to get over it and get on with your life and all those kinds of things. Don't be hard on yourself, and don't be hard on other people. Journey with God into the grief and out the other side. It's a journey, it's a process. Like I said, People who have studied these things say that it typically will be a 2-year process before you come to this place where the psalmist comes to, where you say, you've turned my mourning into joyful dancing, and you've taken away my clothes of grieving and clothed me with joy. Yes, weeping may last through the night, but joy comes through the morning. And sometimes weeping lasts for many nights, as some of you know that reality. I want to encourage you, whether you are grieving or you know someone who is grieving, equip yourself with both scriptures that speak to that grief, that don't minimize it, that actually own it and take it for what it is. The Bible's got many of them. Psalms has got lots of psalms of lament, of crying out to God. Be familiar with the Psalms. And then also a book such as this one can be a helpful resource to have. So everybody, let's equip ourselves so that we know when grief comes, we've got some resources we can turn to. And also when grief strikes close by us in family or friends, we've also got some resources to help that person in their time of need. The thing they need most is people just to sit with them and listen to them, love them, and pray for them. Don't try to fix them. Pray for them, love them. God bless us all as we keep going on this journey of walking through life together with Him and with one another.